Okay, this is W1REX, and this is just a quick note on how to build the Night Sender key and what to pay attention to, because there are a couple of tricky little spots here. So here's the kit. You're going to get well, you might have gotten a bulk kit. Um, I did this special for someone who's doing 40 kits. So we're going to separate out the parts. There's some washers. All the key stuff is in brass, so there's three of those little guys. There's three of these bigger. Those are number 4, number 6, number 8. A couple of bolts. I'm just lining it up on the side. I'm going to work on one side. There's a cap screw. So get all the parts all organized. There's a key. And of course it came with the board. So probably the first thing to really that's most concerning is these snaps. You notice that there are no holes other than the key tube. No holes. This is not a through-hole board. This is like Manhattan construction. And these, you can see the little tabs on the end. They're for going through a board. So we have to modify these. So the first thing to do is get a battery. Generally, I have one when I'm building a kit. I have a couple of dead batteries laying around that I've made dead, so you can use them for spacing. So I just snap those things on, like so. Now, if this was a live battery, putting those two together, if they touch together, that would discharge the battery quite quickly. So the idea of using a dead battery is kind of convenient. So what I'm looking for is over here on the battery, there's the plus side, and over here you can see the plus side. So I just want to make sure the battery is oriented properly, and you'll see that the little pads here for putting this down, these pads, this goes on here like so. These pads are bent out. So I'm going to use a pair of nice square needle nose pliers, and I'm going to go to the front. I got my wrong glasses on. Hang on one second. I got changed into my close-up glasses. I have my computer glasses on. Okay, now I can work. Now I can actually see this pin. So I'm going to take my square nose jaw, and I'm going to go right so it's even across the front, and I'm going to bend it forwards, nice and square, bending it forwards at a 90-degree angle. And that goes in here like that. So this one now is going to be bent out. Let's just double check that. I'm going to put this back on. I'm going to position it over the top, and I'm going to see what it looks like. I'm going to put this one back on. I'm looking to mount this evenly. Okay, it looks to me like both of these, I haven't built one in quite a while, I have to refresh my memory. Both of these are bent to the, well, it depends on how you hold it, I guess. I'm going to bend them up. So there's that. And I don't know if you can see, that's a really nice little 90-degree angle. And this one is going to be bent in. I have to do it sideways to put my pliers. So I'm going to bend it in like so. So if you look, now this thing will actually stand up right there on those pads. So I'm going to put this back on. I'm going to take the other one off for a second. Put this back on. Position this where I like it. towards the front. I'm looking down. I'm looking down inside to see that front tab that's to the front. I'm trying to make sure that all these tabs are lined up on a nice solder, and the battery is square. So I like where that's sitting. So I'm going to now solder that down. I'm going to use one hand to hold it. In this particular case, you want to use a good blob of solder. You want lots of mechanical structure to this hold down on these pads, because it's going to take a little bit of stress when you plug and unplug a battery. So I am, spin this around, I am putting a good sized gob of solder there. So there is that plugged in. I'm gonna take the battery off, and you can see that there's another one. There's another one to the front in here, going frontwards on that pad. So I'm going to hit that guy with some solder. Mount it up nice and neat. Okay, so there's the first pad. So I can put this back on. Now this guy is going to be going the other way. So again, the tab in front goes straight to the front, 90-degree angle. I'm looking at this 90-degree angle. And then this is going to go, I'm looking at it, placing it down there. So this is going to go out, away from me. And this one is going to go, yep, that's a little bit more than 90. This one's going to go in. So now I can stick this on the battery. Stick the battery on the other 90 on the other pin. So now that battery's kind of installed. This one's not soldered down, but I can now solder it down to the pads. Okay, let it cool. I can now take the battery off and do the front one. Okay, so there the battery snaps on. This is actually the order in which I would build this kit. The next tricky part is this piezo speaker. And here's the piezo, and we're gonna first thing is we're gonna cut. You can see one lead's a little bit longer than the other, so I'm gonna just cut the lead off and see if I can't even them up. Then I can put this oh crud, we just lost our power, but I think we're still going. I can plug this onto this 4-pin connector. It sits rather flat. Okay, now I'm looking at plus. There's a plus sign on this. See, I plugged this piezo into this 4-pin connector carefully without puncturing myself. There's a plus on here and there's a plus on here, so this would mount this way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just solder one pin. I'm going to add some solder to it, and the same pin on the board. I told you we just had a power failure, and there's the There's the TV going off. Okay, so now that I've got a little bit of solder on this pad down here, and I've got that one pin soldered, I can go in here, set this on top, make sure it's even on all the pads, and I can now just reflow that one point. I know I'm not quite vertical. I'm gonna make it nice and vertical. So now it stands up all by itself, and you've got one pad soldered. So now I can sneak in. I can very carefully. Well, I'm actually just gonna sneak in and solder those other 3 pins. I'll do the one on the outside, and then let's see if I can. Okay. I'll bring in my little thing. I'm trying to do this so that you can actually see me getting in there. So I'm playing around with. So what I'm trying to do is now I'm trying to get in underneath that and just clean off my tips so my iron's clean. I'm going to just go very close to the board and add solder to those 2 pins. Now only the 2 outside pins are being used, and what I've done is I've bridged them a little bit, so now I've added more structure, so I can just see, I can unplug that piezo and I can plug it back in. And the idea is if you want to go in the silent mode, you can unplug the piezo and you're ready to go, and then you won't have any noise. Now the next problem is, or not problem, but the tricky part is the fact that you got to identify which lead is which on the LED. And if you look at it, there's a flat side. The base of this thing is round, but there's a flat side on it, and you'll see it says flat. So I'm going to match up the flat with the flat, so the LED would go here like so. And if you look at the layout, when you put it down, you look at the layout, it's right after where there's a little shape on the leads where it normally would stick into a board and hold fast. I'm going to bend it at 90 degrees at that shape. Okay, and I'm going to go at the bottom of the LED. I'm just looking at it from the top, and I'm going to now bend them back again, like so. So now you've got a little zigzag that, I don't know if you can see that now. See the little zigzag? And then I'll spread these apart a little bit. I lay it down. You notice it sort of sits nice and flat now. And it's right about, you don't want the tip going beyond the board because that's where the can will be when you store it in the can. So I'm just checking out the spacing before I solder it. And I'm spreading out a little bit more. And I'm also going to splay this a little bit more. I'm going to bend this at 90 degrees, like that. So you want to keep, yep, I bent it up a little bit, so you want to just dry fit everything. Just, take your time, make sure it looks good where it wants to be. And I kind of like that, although okay. So, yep, I like that. So now I can set that there. And I'm going to, it's going to move around a little bit, but I'm going to be able to recover that by just going over and whoosh, holding it while the solder cools off. I'm helping it by blowing on it, and I'm gonna just make this guy just a little bit so it fits on the pad a little bit better. I can cut it off. It's way long, so I'm gonna cut it off, and I'm gonna bend it over just a little bit more. Okay, so I got a lot more of that lead sitting on the pad. I'll hit that with some solder. I'll cut the other lead off, holding it with my finger so it doesn't go flying. And so now I can take a look at that and just sort of bend it up in the air a little bit so it's nice and parallel to the board, the LED. And you can see the LED is up in the air and parallel to the board, sticking out of the board. So there's the LED. The other part is the resistor. We're going to do the same thing. We'll just take one lead needs to be, I can shorten that quite a bit because it sticks way over on the other side of the board. So in this case, I'm going to put it right between the two pads, and I'm just going to mash down on them with my fingers so that it sits on those two pads. And now I will hold it in place. Oops. Here's a trick. If you put your solder so it's sticking up in the air, see, like a cobra. You know, a cobra comes out of the basket. So clean my tip. I'll add a little bit of solder to it, and then I'll just put it on the. So now I can do the second side. I can now solder directly. Now I'm piling the solder on there because I'm making that a good connection. It's going to hold tight. I'm going to trim off the excess lead. Now you should be using a good pair of sharp flush cutters. If you're using dikes or side cutters, you're not going to get very clean cuts, and you're not going to get them close to the board because they don't have nice sharp jaws on the old side cutters. That's old school. So I'm just going to add solder to that other side that I started off first because that was a very thin solder. So there's really all the circuits. Now I got to build up the key. In this case, the little teeny 440 flathead goes in there. We got a number 6 sitting on top. Whoops, number 6 sits on top because there's a little bit of a shoulder on that thing, so sometimes the number 4 doesn't actually fit down there very nicely. So I'll put 2 of those number 4s and the acorn nut on. Okay, and then I'll put the number 6 through here. It takes a number 8. You see there's a little bit of a shoulder on that flathead thing, so I'll put a number 8, which has got a bigger hole in it to take that up, and I'll put 2 number 6s on top, and the knurled nut as a spacer, and that should be able to really go down there nicely. Put this guy on top, and this should go on here. Oops. Now I'm gonna do I don't happen to have my nut driver close by, so I'm gonna hold the key where it's in the position. I'm just gonna get a little bit of tight to that, and now you should be able to see that if you're looking down in here, this only, I'm gonna bend it a little bit. This only has to move a tiny bit to make the thing. So we'll plug the battery on. We'll see what happens. Hope this is a live battery. Oh, I forgot to take the paper off the sound hole. I think that battery might be a little on the low side. Let's go find another good battery. The better the battery, the longer it lasts. So here's a nice, good Energizer Ultimate Lithium. We'll plug that on there and see what we get. So we get the audio feedback and we get the LED. I tested these LEDs. This one's green, red. They're both super bright or ultra bright LEDs that I put in the kits, and I've actually seen that at 1 o'clock in the morning in the summertime. We put one down at the bottom of the gravel pit, and then went up the hill in Limerick, and we were looking at it from about a mile away, and we could plainly see it. Very bright. So there it is, and of course it drops in the. Oh. Sometimes these holes might have a little bit of a you can feel that up above. So what I do is, rather than put a piece of insulator in the bottom of the board, you can just take a piece of black electrical tape. Find the end of it. That's not it. Come on, there it is right there. And you take and you just cover over those two. There. So now when you drop that in the thing, there's no way they can short out, and there it is stored. Open it up. Now you could drill a hole in there, but I find it hard to aim it that way. So you just take it out. Come on. And you can actually sight down the LED. I'm actually sighting. I can sight down the LED right through the board of the notch. You can point this wherever you want. Of course, this beam is going to be relatively wide if you go out at a supreme distance, but I just like to aim it. Makes it more fun. But now, there's your. But you can now unplug the audio, and you're in stealth mode. So these are really great. Now you can change the color of the LED as long as it's an ultra bright or super bright LED. You can change the color, so you could have different patrols could have their own color, so that they could send messages back and forth in Morse code. I include stickers that you can add to the inside of the box. So there's your Morse code in there. So that's part of the build. I put the labels on because those are kind of tricky. But there it is. And there is the. I'll put this back on carefully. There you go. There's the build. Nice sender key. Let's see if I got all this with the power failure. Stop recording.